Welcome to WTF Fantasy Football. Jim Day and, of course, Brian Drake. We're here for the next hour talking fantasy football. Le'Veon Bell. Not here. Not here. I don't know where he is. He's busy. He's not playing football, Jim Day. Everybody held on to Le'Veon Bell, but Des Bryant decided to come back.
Yeah, well, Bell, supposedly Bell is in Pittsburgh, but now, we got the news yesterday that, people looked into it further, and with the new bargaining agreement, he doesn't actually have to play this year to be considered either a free agent or Pittsburgh throwing the transition tag on him. So he may not even play a single game all year. And, if I'm him, if that's your ultimate goal is to make sure you don't get hurt before you sign your next big deal, why would I even step on the field?
Brian, you know what, Brian? I'm pretty good at math, and I don't understand how this is going to work out for Le'Veon Bell, but it certainly didn't work out for fantasy owners.
No, it didn't. And the more this goes on, the less I care about Le'Veon Bell. He's just putting out upside-down tweets tonight that I have to read. And I just don't care. I'm not flipping my phone around to try to read this.
You can't read upside down?
Hopefully people have James Conner, and if you don't, you don't. And what can you do? But I'm done with this guy. I just don't give a damn anymore about this guy. When he comes back, you know what? Great. He's just going to do exactly what James Conner's doing. It's just plug a different guy in. I'm over it. He's a baby now. Go away.
He's gone. Des Bryant is back. The Saints are looking like arguably the top team in the National Football League. But each week, the wide receiver position for the New Orleans Saints, despite Drew Brees' success, we've had a different guy step up, and no one really step up. Jim, does Des Bryant have anything left in the tank?
Well, we're definitely going to find out. Look, he goes to a good team with a very strong leadership role there in Drew Brees. So, it's not like he's going to be able to, kowtow any young quarterback. He's got somebody there who can stand toe to toe, so he won't get away with any crap. He's going to have to be there to want to play for them to really get him involved in the offense. So we'll have to see. Maybe it took him this long to sign because he wanted to sign with somebody who was a contender looking at a chance to go to the playoffs. So if he did that smart move by him, it looks like he's got a one-year deal that he can get out of at the end of the year. Basically like a prove-it half year that he could still play this game. And we shall see it. He's going to a team with a quarterback, though, that, outside of Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara, everybody else is kind of mixed in, mixed out, mixed in, mixed out. And I don't see them really putting any kind of emphasis on Des Bryant. He's just another piece to their puzzle.
Yeah, he is. And I think people, just based on what I read today on social media, Brian, I think people are doing way too much to get Des Bryant on their teams. I've seen some of the questions in the fantasy football talk about should I have Des Bryant, cut this guy. And I think people are going way overboard with a guy that was last out of eligible wide receivers in creating separation, but was fourth best last year at balls when he was covered. So I don't know which Des Bryant there, or which statistic you want to use, because one's a positive and one's a negative, Brian, but I don't think he's going to have significant impact. When have we seen two wide receivers have consistent impact in that Saints offense, which features the running backs now?
Yeah, when you look at the New Orleans Saints, you've got Michael Thomas, who on the year is gaining, he's got a 30% target share. Alvin Kamara gets 23% of their targets. So that's a lot of balls going to two guys. Everyone's talking today about how this is going to impact Traquan Smith negatively. I'm going to take the opposite side. I think this is going to help Traquan Smith. The reason is now he's going to get even less attention from defensive coordinators. He's not going to get the second corner. He's going to get the third corner on him. And maybe they move him into the slot and he's getting a slot corner, where that's a position where he can win from and he can get vertical from that spot, which is what he excels at. So don't go crazy trying to get Des Bryant here. To be honest, if I got him, I'd be trading his ass this week because he's got a name and the trade deadline's coming up in all these leagues. Get him, move him for somebody who's actually going to give you value the next 3 weeks.
Jim, I agree with Brian. I think the greatest time you have to trade any players before they ever play a game. And based on everything I've seen out there, people are overrating what this guy's going to do. I believe it. I would do it, Brian. Before he ever plays a game, I'd shop him.
Well, just like we said last week with Cortland Sutton, I said the same thing about him. Get him before he steps on the field, before people actually see what he does, and you'll get a bigger price. Same thing for Dez. Absolutely, you want to sell him now if you got him. Definitely the best time in the world to do it.
Now, Jim Day is a very, very strong producer of the show, strong creator of the show. He says, Tony, 3 minutes on Dez Bryant. That's it. And so now we're moving on. We officially moving on, people. This podcast won't be the only show in fantasy football that said 3 minutes. That's it. Now we're on to the Jets.
Ooh, that's a rough 3 minutes right there.
How much time do we get for the Jets?
About 30 seconds.
All right. Josh McCown going to start at quarterback this week. You have to think that all the wide receivers get an uptick, right? We saw Josh McCown have success with his Jets offense. I know he's another year older and he hasn't played a game, but we didn't see anything positive happening there. I would think that if you had a wide receiver 3 that you were looking like a Robbie Anderson or any of those guys in that offense that are getting some playing time, they might be viable.
Might be is keywords there for me. We're getting bad echo. I don't know where that's coming from. Sorry, folks. You know what? If he was playing any other team but Buffalo, I'd agree with you, Tony. But Buffalo has just been playing very good defense, especially against quarterbacks and wide receivers. They can be beat by the running backs, but at quarterback, I mean, they're number 2 on the year against opposing quarterbacks. But over the last 5 weeks, they're actually number 1, and that was against some very tough offenses. I definitely think he gives them a better shot. He played well for them last year, no doubt about it. This year they wanted to see what the kid brings, and they did what they had to do as a team. But, he definitely brings something else to the table and will give them a better shot. I just don't like it against this defense.
But, Brian, how were the dildos in Buffalo?
I should have sent you guys a picture of some dirty, soiled underwear that was just laying next to a urinal. But Buffalo, let me tell you, folks, I went up to New Era Field this weekend. That place is like Thunderdome, man. It is crazy. It's a whole different planet. All right. The girls are as crazy as the guys. It's just madness. And I've been to Philadelphia for games. Buffalo takes the cake in terms of just pure madness. But talking about the Jets, I really love this, Jim. I'm a big fan of Elijah McGuire. I think he's going to kind of take off here and become their feature running back. And if you look at what Robbie Anderson did last year with McCown, McCown threw 400 passes last year. Robbie Anderson went 52 for almost 907 touchdowns last year. He was a borderline wide receiver too. So if you have any of the Jets, even a Nunwa out there, Chris Herndon, if you need a streamer tight end right now, the arrow's pointing up for every Jet as long as McCown's in the lineup, in my opinion.
I like the Herndon call. I think we're seeing a little more and more each week from him, and I think that's a good call when you're thinking tight ends and everything goes there. But Jim, Elijah McGuire and soiled underwear, I don't know which was worse in that conversation.
No, I like McGuire as well. I definitely think I'm not sure he's going to take over the lead role, but I definitely think he's going to be involved in the passing game a lot. They liked him coming into the season in that role before he got injured. They expected him to replace Powell in that role. They like this kid. They really want to get him involved, and we saw that last week. Activated on Saturday, had a nice little role on Sunday. I think that role increases, especially with Crowell being, so inconsistent and undependable.
He already played. He played 13 more snaps than Crowell, anyways.
Yep.
He's getting targets, and the game script in most Jets games are going to be in his favor. This is a guy. If you can get him off the waiver wire even still this week, there's a viable flex play for the next 3-4 weeks of the regular season and playoffs.
I totally agree.
Jim asked a great question. Jim wants to know who the best one-loss team in the NFL is. If you're in the chat room, go ahead and fire it in there. Who is the best one-loss team in the National Football League? To me, it's easy. Absolutely, the LA Rams. When I look at that team, I look at a passing game. I like the wide receivers. I love the offense. The running back's the best player in football. I think the defensive line is great. I think Marcus Peters is a great second cornerback. I think he's a little risky, BB1. Aqib Talib will be back in week 13. I think they made a great move in getting Fowler as a guy that's a backup on that team. So to me, and they have the best kicker in football. I think it's the Rams. I think the Saints let them back in the game real quick in that game last week. And if they have to go to New Orleans again in the playoffs, they take them out.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Rams. I like everything they do. I just think they're a really complete team. When I look at Kansas City or any of those things, I think there's flaws in the defense, and I think they're going to get exposed, especially if you have to play Tom Brady again on the road. I don't trust that young team going into Foxborough, and really, I just don't trust them at all playing against the Patriots. I love what McVay's doing. He's a great play caller, and the weapons. It's hard to knock a team with that many weapons. They're not one-trick ponies. It's not all girly. So they're awesome. Big fan of them, and I think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year.
Well, there's not much I could really say since that was exactly what I predicted preseason. I predicted the Rams were going to the Super Bowl, and I predicted they were going to play the Chargers just to put a little upset on the other side. But, yeah, no, Sean McVay to me is, if not the best coach in football right now, damn, top 5 easy. He has this offense doing a lot of things that people are just not ready for each and every week, and just love to see this team to come together. Look, he took Jared Goff from what most were considering a bust potential to, top of the league in 1 year. This guy is something special. At 32 years old, it's really hard to believe he's got such a great football mind, but man, he is really knocking it out of the park. Very
interesting, Jim, on the Chargers. How do you feel about them going right now as opposed to the start of the season? Are you still confident in the Chargers? They're playing good football without Bosa.
No, right, and they get Bosa back soon, and not only that, they're always been a better second-half team than a first-half team. They always seem to get out of the gate slow, and then they come on just enough to either just miss out the last game or, something like that. I think they get past that this year, and, I think Rivers finally gets his chance to play in one. I think he deserves it.
They're the top wild card right now, too, so look, they're only a game behind the Chiefs. It's 6-2.
They're not doing bad.
No, they're doing great. And what I like about them is they're running the ball. Once they got Forrest Lamp back in there this year, their offensive line has been solidified. They're running the ball down people's. They're running it down people's throats. And Rivers is playing like an MVP candidate. I think if there was ever a year, this is the year for the Chargers.
I like the Chargers. I like Phillip Rivers. I always thought he was underrated. But when we get to the playoffs, he throws too many interceptions, and I could see one game it getting away from him. But they got so many offensive weapons at wide receiver, right? They get better every week. See Melvin Gordon playing a little banged up. It doesn't matter. They got a ton of weapons.
Yeah, even bringing Austin Eckler behind him, it doesn't matter.
They got no home field. They might as well get the wild card. They have no home field advantage. They only got 28,000 people there.
Yeah, really.
That's the biggest joke of playing in an MLS stadium. I saw a real interesting stat this week. If you took Tyrell Williams and Mike Williams, I know that's your boy, Jim, and you meld those two guys together, because you never know which guy's going to go off in a certain week, that they would become a wide receiver 7 in fantasy football for what they're doing. You just got to flip a coin over who's going to do it that week, but they're getting production out of that Williams spot.
Touchdown. They're getting plenty of touchdowns out of it. They're not really getting a lot of yard. Well, they're getting some big touchdowns, but they're not getting a lot of receptions out of it, and things like that. They're not seeing a ton of targets, but they are scoring touchdowns, and, it's hard to count on, but it's there.
I'm going to break down what just happened on the show. Brian says, if you take one Williams and you take the other Williams on the Chargers and you put them together, you have the 7th best wide receiver in fantasy football. Whoever did the research for that is a guy not getting laid, Jim. He's absolutely sitting there and spending a lot of time at looking at these things.
Well, I love that when they come up with these crazy stats, like on Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football, and they say, oh, he's 3-0 when playing on a Sunday night when it's cloudy and below 60 degrees. But once you get above 60, oh, man, it's totally the opposite. He goes to 1-7. Give me a break with these stupid freaking stats. They're getting nuts.
Now, Jim asked a straightforward question, and I looked at that and I said, this is a good question. But nobody, I listen to a lot of shows, right? And I'm always very critical of some of these shows and doing some of these. But I never hear anyone talk about this, Jim. Why is Eli Manning the starting quarterback for the New York Giants, a team that has nothing to play for? Looking at the future, why is Eli still the starter?
It doesn't make any sense to me. At the least, if you're going to tank on the season, and it looked that way by getting rid of Eli Apple and Snacks Harrison, otherwise why bother? And not like Eli Apple was the greatest cornerback in the world, but he was a good young quarterback. Snacks Harrison, one of the best defensive tackles in the league, and you give him up for next to nothing. Okay, so you're ready to tank on the season, see what you get next year. I get that. So you got a young kid that you drafted late in this year's draft that has some potential. You want to see what he can do at quarterback. The team goes into the bye at whatever freak they are now, 1-8, 1-7. I can't keep track.
Yeah, they're 1-7.
And you go into the bye, you come out of the bye, and Eli is still your quarterback. It doesn't make any sense. Put the kid in. Let's get a half a season out of him. Let's see if he's got what we need, because that gives us, the idea of what we have to do in the draft. If all of a sudden Kyle Oletta steps in now and, has a good second half of the season, really starts to get Odell Beckham involved, gets Barkley involved, gets Shepard involved, Engram involved, and all of a sudden we see this kid becoming an NFL quarterback, then we don't have to use our first pick in the first round on a quarterback next year. To keep Eli in there right now is just the stupidest thing in the world, and it really just makes me want to bitch slap the Giants.
Well, the owner made that call last year to put Eli back, and he is an Eli guy. All right, the Maras love Eli for the 2 Super Bowls he brought, and the kind of person he is. But the bottom line is the Giants have scored the second fewest points in the NFC so far this year. And maybe they say, we don't want to see what this Kyle Oletta kid has, because say he comes in and he does light it up, okay, or he's just serviceable enough where people think, let's give him a chance next year. The media and the fan base are going to want that top pick to be a big quarterback. You don't want him to say like, we're going to roll with this 3rd, 4th round guy. They're not going to have that. They want the bright lights. They want the big name. They want that top pick standing up there with Goodell with the jersey. They don't want Kyle Oletta to be the face of their franchise. So maybe keeping Eli in there.
Wait. I got to disagree with that a little bit. First of all, you got Saquon Barkley there.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be a monster at the position for years. Odell Beckham, whiny little kid, but he's still there. You got 2 superstars sitting there. You know what? If you go into that draft and you come out of it with the best left tackle in the freaking game, and you put him up there and you're going to have him there for 10 years, I bet you're not going to hear as much of a peep as you think you are.
Yeah, but left tackles don't win Super Bowls. Quarterbacks do. And if you don't have a franchise quarterback, I mean, how many quarterbacks do we see really in the NFL who weren't like stud first-round picks?
Tom Brady.
First-round pick now. I mean, Brady
I saw Nick Foles win a Super Bowl.
Nick Foles is a second-round pick.
Yeah, he's not too good, though.
Look, you know what? But that's what I'm saying. You got to find out if he's anything. Why even bother? At that point, if that's what they're going to say, that they're not going to put him in because of that reason, why the heck did you draft the freaking kid?
I agree. They shouldn't have drafted him. That was a spot where you could have got a lineman right there. And what was he, a 3rd-round pick?
There wasn't much left. No, he was a 5th-round pick.
I mean, you can't base it and say, hey, we want to give this 5th-round pick. They had Davis Webb a few years ago, too. They never gave him any run.
I agree with that, but it just doesn't make any sense. At least find out if he's worth anything. If he plays halfway decent, you could always try and trade him.
He could be Tom Brady. He got picked around earlier. He could be better.
You just never know, and you won't know him sitting on the bench. Doesn't make any sense to me. I've had it. I don't want to talk about the Giants anymore.
He could be the San Francisco.
They suck.
Kid.
I don't want to talk about him no more.
Yeah, Mullins, right?
Oh yeah, we can talk about Mullins. That was pretty fun.
Trade for him.
Hey, we got a game. Everybody can play along at home, and everybody get a little fired up here. It's either or. We're gonna give you 2 players, and you pick which one you like. Jim, is this week or for the rest of the season?
This is. I think I set it up for rest of season.
That's what ROS stood for. I thought so, but I wasn't sure. All right. First question: Dez Bryant or Cortland Sutton? What's crazy is that I think Dez Bryant gets a little lost in this offense. We went over the offense a little earlier. I actually think it's going to be Cortland Sutton by a little. And Des Bryant, I'm sure, has more upside in the Saints offense that can put up 40 points a week. But I think Cortland Sutton gets more targets.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. I don't see Des Bryant being much of a factor. He's going to play on a big national TV game and catch a touchdown, and everyone's going to go crazy. But Cortland Sutton's a great player, and he's the future of that team. He just missed a long touchdown.
Great. Let's not throw around a great word for Cortland Sutton. He's got a very limited route tree. He's got some holes in his game. We can't throw around a great word for him. I'm sorry.
For what
I think by the end of the season, you're going to see him supplanted by Deshaun Hamilton.
I think they're going to play two different spots, though. If you're going to have one guy out at the X, and then you're going to have maybe you move Sanders into the slot, and the other guy's your wide receiver, then you have all three on the field. That's their plan. That's what they'd love to have. You wonder if they even re-sign Sanders, but I think for the sake of this conversation, I'm going to say Cortland Sutton's the guy you want rest of the year. I think he has the higher ceiling.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree. I've seen aspects of his game lately that I don't like. I'm not sure he's going to be the every week producer that everybody else seems to think. I think I go with Dez. I don't love Dez, but I think I go with Dez in this one.
Next up, a couple of Buccaneers. Adam Humphries or Chris Godwin? Jim, who do you got?
Hey, I'm rolling with with Humphries right now. I mean, he's the guy. He's got 27 targets over the last 3 games, coming off a great game. Godwin didn't see half as many snaps, definitely a lot less targets in this one. You know, it was hard to see coming. We saw the increase in targets 2 weeks before, but not a lot of numbers to go with it. Didn't really seem like it was a great fit with Fitz coming back in, because Fitz didn't really target Humphries at all to start the season. Very little to do together at all those first 3.5 games. So this one kind of came out of left field, but, you know, with them giving him higher targets each and every week, I think you just got to like this kid.
Yeah, I have a league where I picked up Adam Humphries last night, and I'm starting him this week. 8 targets in 3 straight games, 14 PPR points in 2 straight games, and Tampa Bay averages 41 passes a week. You can't go wrong with that for Adam Humphries. Godwin might have a better touchdown upside, but for an every week guy, I really love Adam Humphries because he's always on the field, and that's what you want.
You're fired up. I'll tell you what, I thought coming into last week, it was going to go back to Adam Humphries not being a part of the offense, because that's what we saw with Ryan Fitzpatrick. But Jim's right? All of a sudden, Godwin's not on the field for a bunch of snaps, and Humphries is out there. It's got to be Humphries.
And that happened actually earlier in the season. Godwin was playing the 4th most amount of snaps the first 6-7 weeks of the season. He was just getting big plays in the end zone, so that's why he looked so good. But Humphries was still playing well ahead of him in terms of snap rate.
It's a sad, sad day for the Chris Godwin owners. Adam Humphries, the little engine that could. He reminds me so much of Thomas. Were you a Thomas fan?
I have a huge, big plastic Thomas, on the other side of my video screen here, that my kids drive around my basement. I'll bring it out for the second half of the show. I'll sit on.
Next up, who do you got the rest of the year? Newly acquired Golden Tate in Philadelphia or John Brown in Baltimore? Brian, who do you have?
I don't want to sound like a Homer fan here, but I mean, this isn't even close to me. Golden Tate is a really, really good wide receiver. John Brown just doesn't get the targets anymore. He's coming away. He's getting 2-3 catches a game. That offense looks like crap. Everybody's in a committee. It seems like Willie Snead is almost the guy to own in that offense now, as sad as that is to say. So I'm going to go with Golden Tate, and he gets to play and beat up on the Cowboys 3 times this year. How many players get to say that in a season?
And I'm going to totally agree with Brian. And the reason I put these pairing together is there's a lot of people out there that seem to doubt Golden Tate going to Philly and not really being used enough to make him viable. I'm like, that's a freaking joke. They're going to use him plenty out of that slot. They're going to use him a ton, just like they did Aguilar last year. They're going to use him all over the field. And John Brown goes with Flacco. As Flacco plays, so goes John Brown. And Flacco has not been playing well of late, and we see John Brown taking a vicious hit every week. He needs those big down-the-field scoring plays to get him any value. And, if Flacco is not playing well like he is right now, very hard to count on John Brown.
I could see why people question the Golden Tate. I think Golden Tate's a great receiver too, but Philadelphia is an offense that ran the ball last year when they were successful, right? They ran the ball, but they've had injuries to running backs, right? Aguilar was great in the slot. Why do you move him from there and put him in, move him to the outside, and Golden Tate put him in the slot? So I think it's a lot of moving parts, and I think that maybe the stability of Golden Tate every week doesn't put up the big numbers every week, but I think we see some big weeks.
I think his volume is just going to be better than John Brown, especially if he plays in the slot. Then he's going to get more opportunities than Brown, who's playing on the outside, and you're hoping he catches something deep. And the Eagles, I think they're just going to run more plays too, so he's going to get more opportunities.
I think he definitely beats John Brown. I just don't know. Do you think Golden Tate puts up better numbers in Philadelphia than he would have in Detroit?
Right, with the way Stafford is playing right now, absolutely. He's not throwing enough to really get it done, and they got a tough schedule going forward in Detroit.
Good call there. Next up, Kenny Golladay or Demaryius Thomas. Now, this is interesting to me. So I watched the game the other night, right? And you can't take anything from one game. And maybe he was emotional, but I never seen a guy taking himself off the field so much because he was tired there. And what the hell's wrong with this guy, Demaryius Thomas? He kept coming off the field, and that worried me. I was like, 2 or 3 plays he ran in a row when he came off the field. They threw him the ball early in that game to set him up, and he's asking to come off the field.
Yeah, I didn't like to see that either. It's I never like to see that. Screw that. When you play, man, you got to drag me off the field. I ain't asking to come off the field. So that always bothers me when you see that. But I like him in this offense. I do. I think he's going to be a player in this offense. Deshaun Watson is going to get him the ball a lot, and opposite D-Hop, I just think it's a great place for him to be right now. And once they get Kiki Cote back, which should be this week, I think he does a lot of damage in the slot. So I think this offense is really going to start kicking in right now, and I like Demaryius Thomas a lot.
Yeah, I think Demaryius Thomas basically is their tight end because they kind of don't have one. When you look at what Kenny Golladay is doing, he's got, 7 targets combined in the last 3 games? That's horrible. That's an offense that's kind of shifting their identity to run the football now. They got rid of a receiver, and they're kind of focusing on Kerryon Johnson as their lead back. So, I mean, Galladay's got all the talent in the world, but I still think Thomas is going to outproduce him just because he's going to score more touchdowns and he has a better quarterback throwing him the ball.
And he's going to see more than 3 targets a game.
Yeah.
Out of 100%, Jim, what is the percentage you see the Houston Texans representing the AFC in the Super Bowl?
Oh, hey, I'd say they got pretty much as good a chance of a lot of other teams. I'd say maybe 30%.
I'm at the same number as you. I think the defense is good. I love the 2 wide receivers. Their running game's actually gotten a little better this year. And Deshaun Watson looks like every week he gets a little healthier. Brian, what do you say?
My answer to that is 0. They have 0% chance of coming out of the AFC. There's no way they're getting past there's no way they're getting past the Patriots. They're not going to beat Kansas City they're not going to outscore them. And there's still San Diego they got to play. And then you got the Steelers. No way. There's no chance. I don't think they win a playoff game, let alone get to the Super Bowl.
Tell us how you really feel.
Wow.
I like Houston. I like some of their parts and all that, but there's no way they're getting past those teams. No way.
All you got to do is start. Wait. All I'm going to say is this. It all depends on when you start getting hot. We saw the Giants win 2 Super Bowls in 2 seasons where for most of the season they didn't look very good. And they just happened to get hot just at the right time going into the playoffs, and then they went all the way. So you can never say 0. I'm sorry, you just can't. They have enough weapons. Sure, the offensive line is terrible, but they're still putting up points.
They might even have a home playoff game.
Yeah, really. I just don't think – I don't think you could say 0 for them at all. I think they have enough talent that they could put up a run.
San Diego goes in there, and they're playing a playoff game against Houston. Who you like in that game? San Diego against Houston.
Well, you know what, like San Diego, I just said they were going to the damn Super Bowl. That's why I only gave Houston 30%.
I'll tell you what. I'll take Houston in Houston over Pittsburgh.
Oh, I would take that too. Absolutely. Yeah, Ben on the road and in Houston. Yeah, I'd take that bet.
I'm just worried about that offensive line. I know they're getting a couple corners back in the next few weeks, but the line is so bad that I think that you can't overcome that. Look at the Eagles when they won last year? Great offensive line. Patriots get it done, always solid line. When the Giants won, they had good line. You need the line. You can't have that deficiency. You can get around and hide about a lot of other things. You can't hide a bad offensive line.
Brian, you just told Jim that you can't pick a left tackle with the first pick of the draft.
You don't have, but you don't have to pick first pick. Jason Peters was a tight end, and when he was at Arkansas, now he's one of the best left tackles in football.
That's true. That's true. You just pick these big guys that bounce at bars and throw them on the offensive line.
Yeah, that's how I got on this podcast. You guys found me in front of Gentlemen's Club.
You know what? You ever been to a gentleman's club and try to have dinner?
First of all, I hate gentlemen's clubs because as soon as you start calling them gentlemen's clubs, all of a sudden you got to pay $25 to get in. Give me an old-fashioned go-go joint where it doesn't cost me anything to walk in the door, and I'm a happy man.
I remember seeing a place where they brought pizzas in, and they would just kind of line them up against the wall on a table, and you just see all these creepy guys going over, like everyone's picking up their own slice and walking. Like, what the hell am I? Get me out of here.
So there's a place in Jacksonville called Wacko's, right? And they're supposed to have the greatest lunch ever, right? So me and my boss decide to go there, and I'm having a turkey sandwich, and then I have a naked woman sitting down as I'm trying to eat this turkey sandwich. It's the most distracting and disturbing thing you've ever had in your life happen. Like you feel very uncomfortable. You don't know if you would have the turkey in your mouth, or you should be talking to her, or what the hell's going on.
You wipe your face with a $1 bill. Oh, geez, that's
so
awful.
Back to
you wipe your face with a G-string.
Either or, Christian Kirk or Larry Fitzgerald. This sounds like an age discrimination choice. Jim, who do you got here?
I really wanted Brian to answer this first. I want to hear your thoughts on this because I know my choice.
If you asked me this 3 weeks ago, I would say Christian Kirk. But I think Larry Fitzgerald is healthy enough now where he's going to be that solid contributor every single week. I would take Larry Fitzgerald just because he's so damn good playing out of the slot. Kirk is out of position playing out wide. That'll be his job in a few years. So just for right now, I'm going to go Fitz.
Too early for Kirk. I agree, Jim.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. I just wanted to see. There's still a lot of people that don't agree with that after Fitz got off to such a bad start. But yeah, it's definitely Fitz over Kirk at this point. I think Byron Leftwich is going to make that. Outside of getting Larry Johnson more involved in the passing game, that's going to be like his number 2 thing. Getting Fitz involved. How can you not? The guy is still in amazing shape, still an amazing receiver. He's got to be involved in this game. And if you want to have any chance in any given week, you got to get Fitz involved if you're the offensive coordinator. And Leftwich is smart enough to know that.
Last but not least, would you go Tevin Coleman or Ito Smith? I'll tell you what, I'll answer this first because I have the right answer for people, and I'll make sure you get it. The answer is, and I hate people that do this, depends on your format. I think in a non-PPR league, I would definitely go Ito Smith. I wouldn't even consider it. In a PPR league, it's close for me. I would lean Tevin Coleman.
I don't think this is close at all. I want Tevin Coleman 7 days a week and twice on Sunday.
Yeah, hey, look, Kevin Coleman has definitely played better the last couple of games than he had all year before that. He's looked more decisive again. He looks like he's running aggressively. There were a few games there where it just didn't look like he was running like that. I don't know what, but maybe, Ito Smith chomping at the heels of him is really starting to get him going. We've seen that happen before. And, what we're seeing, though, is it's getting very, very close to a timeshare. Their number of snaps are getting very close to even between the two of them. So hopefully they, set it as defined roles and not, pick one or the other each and every week. that definitely is going to be a killer for fantasy if that ends up happening. But you're right, Tony. In a standard league, Ito Smith is the guy you want to have just because he's going to get the goal line plunges, things like that. But in a PPR, I definitely lean Coleman, but it's getting closer.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, he had the big catch, Tevin Coleman, last week, and of course, put in the end zone, had a big play there. And like Jim said, the week before, he looked better there. But other than that, he hasn't done anything with the opportunity. And Ito Smith getting more and more of an opportunity. And speaking of Ito, Jim, remember Judge Ito's the one that put O.J. Simpson in jail.
If the glove don't fit, you must have quit. Yeah.
Yes, that was it. That was the glove don't fit, you must have quit. Now is the time, fact or fiction. We'll start out with Brian. Brian, Des Bryant is a wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season for fantasy footballers.
I'm going to say that's fiction. He's not going to be consistent enough to be a wide receiver 2, which is, a wide receiver, a 12 through 24, something like that. That's not going to be the case. You're going to get 6 points. This is what Des Bryant's going to be. He's going to be a 3 for 48 guy, and you pray he scores.
Yeah. Here's what I say. It's definitely fiction. Don't live in the past, people. I go in my bedroom every night, and I see that Farrah Fawcett poster on the wall, and I get excited at the poster. But in real life, Farrah Fawcett isn't the same woman she was 30 years ago.
Now, I agree with you guys to a certain degree, except every time I think about this in my head, and that echo's driving me nuts. Every time I think about it in my head, I think about the fact that I said the same exact thing about Adrian Peterson. And you know what? Des Bryant is, stubborn enough that he wants to prove a point too. So, yeah, I don't know if he's going to be a steady wide receiver 2, but I think he's going to be a little bit more than you guys are envisioning.
Yeah, but Jim, the problem I have is with the Saints offense. When have we really seen a reliable number 2? Taking Des Bryant out of the question. And second, as we broke down earlier, 58% of the targets are going to 2 guys.
And I agree, Tony. I agree. I'm just saying. I said the exact same thing about Adrian Peterson. I didn't think there was anything left. I didn't think he'd do anything, and he's having a very good, solid year. So, I'm not going to say Des can't do it, especially when you got Drew Brees throwing to him. And look, they went out and got him for a reason. They're not getting what they wanted out of Cameron Meredith. Traquan Smith is a good speedster who, can take the top off of defense, but he doesn't really bring much else to the table. And Des Bryant, as a number 2, not going against the best corners because, of course, they have to cover Michael Thomas. All of a sudden, you got this big, strong wide receiver who's knowledgeable, has experience, knows what he's doing out there. As your number 2, maybe we see a shift. I'm just saying the possibility is there.
It is there. It is there. It is there. Leonard Fournette, Jaguars running back, is a running back 1 rest of the season, Jim.
I would bet on that in a heartbeat. I'm not trusting Leonard Fournette at all at this point. I don't think the team trusts Leonard Fournette at all. That's the only reason they could have went out and got Carlos Hyde. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. He could surprise. He's got the talent if he could stay healthy. But, man, I'm not sure I'm ready to buy into it at this point. I can't wrap my head around them going out and get Hyde if they think this guy could stay healthy.
That's an interesting point, and I have to agree with that. But I also know what that offense is and how they built that team. And I think that he can be that that running back 1. You want to minimize Blake Bortles, show as little of him as possible. Your wide receivers stink to begin with. They're a bunch of 3s. So if he's healthy and they give him ample opportunity to rest that hamstring, he could come in and just bulldoze. He's got fresh legs. I mean, this guy's been sitting on the sidelines for 2 months.
No, yeah, go ahead, Tony.
I think that if he plays, he's a running back 1. I mean, to Jim's point, can you bet on him the rest of the season? I don't know. But if he's going to play that Sunday, he's a 1. And to Brian's point, he's being kind. Wide receivers 3. That's the worst group in the NFL. I mean, them or Buffalo are the worst group of wide receivers in the NFL. There's no doubt about it. He's going to get the ball 30.
Buffalo.
I think it's close, but I agree with you. At first, I was throwing the Jaguars out there, and I said, you know what? I might have discounted the Bills.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it all works out. But hey, that's why we discuss this stuff. It makes it a little bit more fun.
Nick Mullins, the 49ers quarterback, will take over for C.J. Beathard, or whatever you want to call him for the rest of the season, because 8 weeks from now, we'll never remember him.
C.J. Beathard.
Yes.
Yeah, really beat hard. What's your thoughts here, Brian?
I mean, they're both backup quarterbacks. Jimmy G's the future there. It's a good story. To me, whenever you see backup quarterbacks come in and produce, that shows coaching, right? Andy Reid always had backup quarterbacks who came in and produced, and then he could pawn them off on somebody for a pick, and they were terrible there because he was a good coach and had them well prepared. So you can tell that Kyle Shanahan is in that same vein, and he's got these guys ready to play. But I mean, yeah, either guy, they're just dudes. They're nothing special. But yeah, can he be the guy the rest of the way? Sure. I mean, it's not great shakes to beat out C.J. Beathard.
Okay, now the one thing I will add to this is that they say this kid is intense. His practice rituals are like far beyond what any of the other quarterbacks do. When practice ends, he stands out there and he visualizes like play after play after play, standing on the field by himself. And, whether or not you believe in visualization, I happen to. I love visualization. It really is something that is very good in sports, and people that use it a lot really stand by it. When you're doing work like that, they say this kid is smart enough that he could be a coach on the field. They didn't have to tailor any of the game book to him because he knew it all. He knew exactly what they would do, how they would do it, and when they would do it. And I'm not saying this kid is going to be the be all end all that. He wasn't even supposed to start a game. But the fact of the matter is, when you got a good offensive coach like him, and you go and play the Oakland Raiders, who have given up and their defense doesn't even want to be on the field, go out there and throw 3 touchdowns and a half, and everybody's talking about you.
So here's the thing that with that game, though, he played. If you watch the game, you could tell early on that this San Francisco 49ers team was like a team that was like in a playoff run. Like they would jump in and they were celebrating every game, every play, because I read that they love this kid at quarterback. The players love him. They knew he was better than Beathard, and they wanted to see him play. They wanted to do well for him. Pierre Garçon's been non-existent in that offense, and all of a sudden he was part of the offense. This kid's got it the rest of the way.
I agree with you. I think he's got every chance to be the quarterback for the rest of the season. Look, Beathard, first couple of games he started, he actually played pretty well from a fantasy perspective, and then he started to tail off and then got injured. Mullins, I just think, he's not always going to have it that easy where, Garçon, you mentioned Garçon and his touchdown. I mean, there was nobody near him in any way, shape, or form. The safety got caught off, and they were just done. He was wide open, easy touchdown. But you know what? The one thing I keep saying, and I bring this up a lot because on the Frenzy, one of the hosts, Chris Ventra, loves Jimmy Garoppolo. So I always got to play with him and tease him. And, after the game, I was like, man, I wonder what San Francisco is going to be able to get next year when they trade Jimmy G now that they have their new franchise quarterback. And you can just see the steam starting to come out of his ears. Oh, come on, stop it. That's not fair.
Let me ask you guys this. If the teams, and this kind of goes back to the Giants there, the 49ers are going nowhere. If they see that this kid can provide a spark and win some games, do you think some kind of GM is like, you know what?
I don't want to win the games. Yeah.
we need the draft pick.
I agree. That's what I'd be doing at this point. You ain't got it back, but, everybody.
There's 2 ways to look at that, though. One, you could lose some games, right, and you could get the draft pick. Or 2, you might be able to move this kid to a team for a 5th round or 4th round draft pick.
Well, there is that possibility, and that's probably what they are looking at. Because Jimmy G is their guy of the future. So why not see if we have anything here that could be valuable to somebody else, a la Teddy Bridgewater. Somebody may be looking for a young kid to groom for a year or 2 and see if he has that moxie. And, man, if you got a kid that works this hard, knows the offense that much, the players, like Tony says, obviously love him, so he's a great in locker room talent, then who knows? He could go on to do something. He has some talent. He throws some nice balls. The other night, he threw a couple of nice passes in tight coverage that were really nice to see. But I don't know. I love guys that work that hard. I just do. I have a propensity towards the guys that want to work hard no matter what it is. I am a Rudy guy.
Fact or fiction? And based on Joe Montana says Rudy's fiction for all the people out there, just to clarify that up. He said, Joe Montana says, I was on the team. I don't remember any of that stuff happening. Let me ask you, Le'Veon Bell played 5 games this season. Fact or fiction, Jim?
Yeah, I've gone on record now for the last week and a half. I don't think he plays a single down. I don't think he plays at all. Why get hurt at this point? That would he threw all that money out the window if he comes on the field now and gets hurt. Everything he lost for this whole season just is up in flames. It doesn't make any sense in the world. Now that they found out that he has this option where he doesn't have to play it down, I don't think we see him on the field.
I always said that when it got to a certain point in week 7 or something, I didn't think the Steelers were going to take him back anyways, because it's just a situation there. You bring a guy in the locker room that's sat out all the time, it's going to cause a commotion anyways, especially with Connor playing better. I don't think he plays either now, and I would love to know who he gets his advice from, because I want to sit down, I want to listen to him explain to me how throwing $17 million out the window made any sense.
Yeah, I'm with you. Probably his uncle. His uncle had been drinking purple drink, and they're just saying, "Hey, man, we don't have to play as we don't want to play."
He's going to be the guy next year that he's going to be shocked at how many limited teams want him and how little money he's going to get, because I think that more and more people are realizing the running back position you can't pay up for.
He is a good talent, though. It's tough. I think
28 though.
I understand that, but I think somebody's going to give him a contract, 4-year contract that they can get out of after 2 years if they want to, or something along that line. Somebody's going to pay up. After getting out of this season and realizing they had no running game whatsoever, he's going to get paid. I don't know if he's going to get paid, the $14 million that they offered him this year. Yeah, but he'll get paid.
It's a matter of what team has that kind of cap space and that kind of need to do it. And it's going to be a crappy team. It's going to be the Jets. It's going to be
John Gruden.
Yeah. I mean, and then wouldn't he want to go to a contender? You think at this point in your career, you say, the hell with that. Just give me all the money I can get.
I'm pretty sure that's exactly what he's going to say. Give me all the money I can get. I just lost $10 million, so you better give me some more.
Yeah. I don't know. It's crazy. The whole situation's nuts.
I'll tell you what, I wouldn't sign him.
I wouldn't either.
He's also just one more bad thought away from being suspended for life in the league. How many suspensions does he have? One more, he could be looking at an indeterminate amount of time being suspended just for being an idiot one more time. He's already shown he's got a propensity to be an idiot.
He's took a year off. The last 2 seasons, he hasn't played 16 games. There's no way in a salary cap sport I could throw that money at him. There's no way I could do that.
But somebody probably will.
Yeah, you're right. It only takes one team. One team. Brian, you had some questions here, Brian. You wanted to go over some strategy for the rest of the way. What do you got?
Well, I want to ask your guys' opinion as 2 veterans of the fantasy industry. So now we're in week 10, okay? We're getting the point of the season where there's trade deadlines and teams are bracing for the playoffs. Now, let's break this down 3 different ways. Are you under the mindset of I need to have a backup quarterback on my season-long roster? Even if you've got an Aaron Rodgers, a Brady, a Mahomes, do you want to have a backup on your roster?
Jim, I got a story to tell here. Yes, and I never carry a backup, but this is the time I start looking for one. Last year, I had an undefeated team through the whole regular season. I won the first playoff week. I lost in the championship because I had no quarterback. I traded for Carson Wentz because he had great playoff matchups. We all know what happened there. I had Aaron Rodgers. We all know what happened there. And I had Josh McCown, and he was out there. I think you look at the playoff matchups, because here's the thing you got to worry about when the playoffs come. Weather becomes a bigger concern. And you could get a guy playing in a snowstorm in Minnesota and you don't want to use them, or you want to at least have an option. So I think you got to have two quarterbacks in the playoffs, and I don't use two quarterbacks during the regular season.
I totally 100% agree there. Once you get into this time of the season, you got to have a good, solid backup. Some leagues don't even offer waivers in playoffs, which to me is just stupid. But it happens. So you definitely need it in those leagues. But even if you have waivers, what you can get off a waiver at that time of year right now, I'd much rather have a good second option. I don't want it to be a great second option, because I don't want it to be like, oh man, is it Rivers or Luck this week, or is it Luck or Rivers this week? And every week you pick the wrong one. But a good, solid second backup quarterback to me is good to have at this point.
Let's piggyback on that and say, if you have Ryan Fitzpatrick right now, you picked him up a week or so ago, do you roster Jameis Winston just for the shot that they're going to bench him or whatever happens, and you still want a piece of that Tampa Bay offense?
No.
Well,
here's the reason.
I'm still thinking.
Here's why I think people make the mistake, and I'm glad you brought this up. When I read this is what I thought. I actually thought of this scenario. I think a lot of times we get carried away on the handcuffs. The other guy's got to be able to play. Now, it's fantasy football, and Winston throws the ball 40 times a game, so he puts up numbers. So I get it. So it's not a terrible move, but I wouldn't go out there. I would actually be trying to get someone else. I'll give you a guy you guys should target. I would actually be interested, and I haven't looked at their schedule to see if they play in cold weather or anything like that. I'd be interested in Mitchell Trubisky that I could get for cheap, and the offense.
You can't get him for cheap right now. He's
not
so many good games. He's a top 12 quarterback now. And,
he's not going to cost me a ton, is what I'm saying. Like I'm not going out that there, and I think someone like that would be fine to grab.
I'll tell you what. I'm going to go back to Brian's thought of grabbing Winston, and I'm going to tell you it's not a bad thought. And here's why: because every single week of the season, except week 4, when they first made the switch from Fitzpatrick to Winston, every other week they've been top 6 or better, whoever started for Tampa Bay. Top 6 or better every single week. That includes the week that Winston was starting, includes the weeks that Fitzpatrick was starting, and it includes the week where they both played a half. They've been a top 6 quarterback every week. Actually, up until last week, they were top 5 every week. Last week, they just ended up in the 6th spot. So, yeah, I think that's an absolutely great move if you have Fitzpatrick now. If you want a good, solid backup, Winston is a great play. And they
Winston shouldn't play another. He shouldn't play another down the rest of the season, because even if Fitzpatrick was to get hurt, he's a free agent at the end of the year, and his contract kicks in at $21 million if he's hurt.
I agree. That's why it's crazy when I see these guys saying, "Oh, Winston's got a shot to come back." It's like, why would you ever put him on the field? If you know
that's a real solid point. I always forget about that.
What about fantasy defenses, guys? Do you ever start looking ahead to matchups in those playoff weeks and then trying to hoard a defense on your bench, so you're rolling with 2, just so when you get there you can say, all right, I've got the Jets in week 14 against Buffalo?
I don't put as much thought into the defenses into the playoffs. I don't. I only play in a couple of leagues that even have defenses anymore, so it's not really a high prevalence in my thought process while I'm trying to build the rest of the team. I mean, it does make sense. It's just, man, defenses are so just up and down pretty much every week that I don't really put a lot of brain process into them.
I have done it before, but I don't do it all the time. I think it depends a lot on the depth of your league, and if you feel like if you're still able to make up pickups during the playoffs, you might be able to find someone playing the Bills that week. You know what I mean? You might not need to carry that. I mean, just picking anyone against the Bills is always an option.
Yeah. Now it's all about starting lineups as we get to this point of the year, and depth maybe isn't as big an issue once the bye weeks pass. What are you guys doing with your benches? Are you kind of trying to load them up with lotto ticket running backs, or just playable depth, as I like to call it, where someone in a pinch, if you got to put him in, he can go in and get you 7 to 10 points?
Playable depth for me. The running backs is what I do early in the season, right? I want as many running backs on my bench as possible because those create trade scenarios. But once you get to close to the postseason, you got to be able to put out a roster that can beat the other team. So the 7 to 12 points that you could get from one of these guys, and you get it every week, not a lot of upside. Yeah, that becomes important. So to me, I build up each position, and I keep the running backs just like everybody else.
Yeah, I can't really argue with that. I agree. I always tend to have, by this time of the season, I am definitely hoarding running backs, trying to make sure I have a solid set. And, as we get maybe into week 11, maybe even 12, just before the trade deadline, maybe I'll move a few of those pieces if I could solidify one starting position for me. But right now, I definitely want to have a nice stable.
And lastly, is there anybody out there you guys are looking to trade for as we head into trade deadline weeks across fantasy football? Is there a player in your leagues you kind of eyeball and saying, I want this guy. I'm going to go out and get him and see who's on what team?
Well, there's definitely one for me, and God forbid it's just been kicking my butt all year. But I still believe, and I'm going to go with Dalvin Cook. I've been trying to buy him wherever I can. I love the fact that we saw him finally get involved last week and actually look pretty damn decent. It didn't look like it was hurting him at all. I love that fact. I think, coming out of the bye week, he's going to be strong and ready to go. So I've been trying to buy him wherever I could.
I got a guy I might not even have to trade for. I might be able to go to the waiver wire and get him. It's Cordarrelle Patterson. I mean, they give the ball to this kid on the goal line now. I thought it was the craziest thing ever. But when you only have him and James White, Sony Michel's supposed to be back this week. But I don't think Patterson's going to be obsolete. I think he's going to have an opportunity to play some wide receiver. I saw Philip Dorsett make get a couple targets in the last game. I think those are there for Patterson. He's going to be a guy that, with Michel banged up, going to his first season, James White them not want to use him, I'm more and more interested in Patterson and all the times he's going to get an opportunity here. I think he has an opportunity to get 8 to 10 touches a week, and he can get him for a song.
You think he's going to do that with Michel on the field?
I think eventually the Patriots have to limit James White. James White is playing way more in the regular season than he ever has. He's not a big back. He's been amazing, but they're in winning. They're into winning Super Bowls, Jim. Not that division should be over before week 14.
Yeah, but Cordarrelle, he's not the same player as James White. He's a big, strong guy that they figure can plow through the middle of a defensive line and do damage that way. And with Michel in there, I just don't know. Even if they're trying to limit White, I don't know if that really leads to Cordarrelle Patterson seeing more work.
Michel's got a banged up knee. James White's been playing on first and second down, so now he gets rid of that. But they're not going to leave Sony Michel out there for the next 5 weeks either.
Yeah, well, it's very possible. Hey, look, I'm not saying get rid of Cordarrelle Patterson. It's just, to me, it's crazy. He's a wide receiver that's better as a kick returner and now better as a running back than he is a wide receiver.
I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe it. Tell me what kind of confidence Belichick has in this guy. You don't give a guy that's not a running back the ball on the 1 yard line because a lot can go wrong there. And the guy gets in, and of course, is holding on the play. But I was like, holy shit, what are they doing giving him the ball on the 1 yard line?
And look, when Belichick believes, he believes. The week before, he caught everybody off guard when all of a sudden, you look at the play, and all of a sudden there's Patterson lining up behind Brady. You're like, huh? What? Everybody's looking for Kenyon Barner to come in and do something and get more playing time. Oh, yeah, screw that. That is totally by the wayside. Let's just put this big, bad Cordarrelle Patterson in there. He doesn't have any trouble running with the ball when he's got the ball in his hands. It's all the other stuff at wide receiver he has issues with.
It's just another thing for defensive coordinators to have to game plan for, is saying, oh, man, now we got to think about this guy too. That's why Belichick will keep it around in his back pocket.
And you're right. And it'll come out in the playoff game when nobody expects it again. That's just what he does. He does it all the time. It's crazy. It's fun. I hate trying to outthink Bill Belichick because I know I can't, but you have to try to get inside his head to figure out, where he's zigging and everybody else is zagging. Otherwise, it's just total mayhem when you're dealing with that team.
Here's the funny thing, though. As good as Belichick is, and we go back to Troy Brown when he played cornerback and all the things he's done, remember, though, Bill Belichick lost the Super Bowl last year with Malcolm Butler. That lost the Super Bowl.
I'm going to say that the Eagles outplayed them, but yeah, hey, that's
well. It's easy to back up cornerback out there when you got a guy sitting there watching the game.
Well, yeah, okay. I can't really comment to that. Oh man, yeah. So damn, the hour's over already. This podcast just flies. Brian, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Drake Fantasy. And when I get off my lazy ass and write something, it's over at fightingchancefantasy.com. And I host a show on Tuesday nights with Dwayne McFarland. We had Joe Dolan from Fantasy Guru on there last night. You can find that over in the podcast section of fightingchancefantasy.com. So check us out. If you like this show, check us out on Tuesdays too.
Yeah, excellent. They do a great show, guys. You definitely should be checking them out. Just go to fightingchancefantasy.com, look for the podcast tab, click on it. You'll get theirs, and you'll also get the hosts of Fighting Chance doing their podcast on Thursday night, Steve and Ryan. They do a nice show as well. Of course, you can find me every day, Monday through Friday from 1 to 2 on the Fantasy Football Frenzy with Corey Parson and Chris Ventra. Saturdays, I do 1 to 4 with Joe Galena with Weekend Fantasy Update. Sundays, I do Sunday morning from 8 to 10 with Mike Blewett and Scott Engel for Fantasy Game Day Live. And then 8 to 10 at night again with Scott Engel for Fantasy Rewind. So they're keeping me busy over there. And, of course, you can always come into the chat room over there at the Fantasy Football Talk on Facebook. If you're not a member, just look me up, do a search for Jim Day or James Day, and should be able to find me, or just do a search for Fantasy Football Talk in the groups, and I'll get you in there. And, you know, we got a lot of good people in there, always great conversations going on, people asking questions, people answering them, a lot of good stuff going on. And that's about it for me. And I want to thank everybody for coming out and joining us in Week 10. Good luck this week. And we will see and talk to you all next week. Have a good one, guys.